4 seconds left on the clock, 20,000 people holding their breath, the weight of an entire city on my shoulders. I've been here before countless times, not just in games, but in my mind. You see that moment when the ball touched my hands? That wasn't the beginning. The real beginning was at 4 a.m. that morning when the gym was empty and cold. When my breath made clouds in the air, my muscles screamed for rest. That's where this shot was born. People ask me how I stayed so calm in those final moments, how I could take that shot with the same focus as if I was alone in an empty gym. They think it's about talent or natural ability. They're wrong. What you saw in those 4 seconds wasn't talent. It was the harvest of thousands of hours when no one was watching, when the cameras were off, when there was no crowd to cheer. Just me and a ball and a hoop and a question, how much are you willing to sacrifice? I remember my father telling me something when I was just 13 years old. He said, "Kobe, focus isn't about seeing one thing clearly. It's about not seeing anything else." At the time, I didn't understand. But as I grew, as I faced bigger challenges, those words became my foundation. The truth is, everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to be great. But most people don't understand the price of greatness. They see the glory, the championship trophies, the moments of triumph. What they don't see are the dark mornings, the silent sacrifices, the constant battle against your own mind telling you to stop, to rest, to be satisfied with good enough. Let me tell you about the real game. It's not the one played under bright lights with millions watching. The real game happens in the dark. It's you against yourself. Your determination against your doubt, your discipline against your desire for comfort. I call it the Black Mamba mentality. Not because it sounds cool, but because I learned something profound from studying those predators. They don't rely on strength or speed alone. They win through focus, through patience, through absolute commitment to their target. Everything else disappears. Do you know what separated me from other players who had the same physical abilities? It wasn't my jump shot or my footwork. It was my mind. While they were thinking about tonight's game, I was preparing for a moment that might come 3 seasons from now. This focus didn't come naturally. I built it day by day, hour by hour, like a muscle that grows stronger with each painful repetition. And what I'm about to share with you is exactly how I did it. Not just to win basketball games, but to win at life itself. Are you ready to learn what it truly means to focus? To discover how deep the rabbit hole of excellence really goes? Because I warn you now, once you see it, you can never unsee it. Once you know the price of greatness, you can never pretend you don't know. The choice will always be yours, to pay that price or to look away and settle for less than what you're capable of becoming. Most people think focus is about adding something, more concentration, more effort, more intensity. But the truth I discovered through years of competition was exactly the opposite. True focus isn't about what you add, it's about what you remove. I was 17 when I entered the NBA, a kid among giants. Everyone told me to pace myself, to adapt gradually, to respect the established order. But I had already built something inside me that they couldn't see, a mental fortress where outside voices couldn't reach. During my second year with the Lakers, we were playing in Madison Square Garden. The crowd was hostile, deafening. During a timeout, one of my teammates leaned over and said, "Man, this crowd is crazy tonight." I looked at him confused. I hadn't heard him. Not because they weren't loud, but because I had trained my mind to create silence even in chaos. You want to know my first secret? Create your own silence. The world is designed to distract you. Your phone, social media, the constant opinions of others telling you who you should be, what you should want, how you should work. These aren't just distractions. They're thieves, stealing your most valuable resource, your mental focus. I built a daily practice of silence. Every morning, 20 minutes, just me, sitting in complete stillness. No music, no phone, no outside input. At first, it was torture. My mind would race, jumping from thought to thought like a monkey swinging through trees. But gradually, I learned to observe those thoughts without following them. This practice didn't just help me on the court, it transformed every aspect of my life. decisions became clearer, priorities aligned naturally. The gap between my potential and my performance narrowed because I wasn't leaking mental energy on things that didn't matter. The second element of my focus strategy came from an unexpected source. When I was recovering from an injury in 2013, I became fascinated with the concept of deep work. I studied how great minds throughout history protected their ability to concentrate deeply. What I found changed everything. True excellence isn't built through busy days filled with 100 small tasks. It comes from extended periods of unbroken concentration on the thing that matters most. I began blocking out 4-hour segments in my schedule, time that was completely protected, where nothing and no one could interrupt my concentration on improving specific aspects of my game. During these deep work sessions, I would focus on a single element, perhaps the mechanics of my fadeaway jumper or the footwork for a particular post move. Not for 20 minutes or an hour, but for 4 uninterrupted hours. No phone calls, no meetings, nothing but complete immersion in the craft. This approach ran counter to everything modern society tells us. We're taught to multitask, to always be available, to respond instantly. But true mastery operates by different rules. It demands sacrifice. It requires you to disappoint people in the short term to create something exceptional in the long term. Let me tell you about my third discovery. I call it the empty cup. There's an old story about a scholar who visits a Zen master to learn from him. As the master serves tea, he keeps pouring until the cup overflows. The scholar cries out, "The cup is full. No more will go in." The master replies, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and assumptions. How can I show you wisdom unless you first empty your cup?" Every day, I practice emptying my cup, letting go of yesterday's accomplishments, releasing yesterday's failures, coming to each practice, each game, each challenge with no preconceptions, no ego, just open awareness and a hunger to improve. This wasn't easy for me. I'm naturally competitive, naturally driven. The instinct to prove myself, to defend my reputation, to protect my ego, these were powerful forces. But there were also limitations. They were the full cup that prevented new growth. You want to know what made me different? I was willing to look foolish in the pursuit of greatness. I was willing to ask basic questions that others thought were beneath them. I was willing to start over, again and again, emptying my cup to make room for better approaches, deeper understanding. The fortress of solitude isn't built in a day. It's constructed choice by choice, sacrifice by sacrifice, and its walls aren't made of stone. They're made of something far stronger, your daily decisions about what deserves your mental energy and what doesn't. Are you protecting your focus with the same intensity that you pursue your goals? Because without the fortress, the treasures of achievement will always remain just beyond your reach. The world will tell you that talent is the currency of greatness. They're wrong. Detail is the true currency. The willingness to care deeply about the smallest elements that others consider insignificant, that's where excellence is born. I remember watching film of Michael Jordan when I was younger. Most people saw his spectacular dunks, his clutch shots, his undeniable athleticism, but I was obsessed with something different. The placement of his pivot foot, the angle of his shoulders before a drive, the timing of his release. These weren't the highlights that made SportsCenter. They were the foundation beneath the visible temple. This obsession with detail became my secret weapon. When I joined the Lakers, I asked the equipment manager for the exact measurements of the basketball down to the millimeter. I wanted to know precisely how the leather grain affected spin, how air pressure changed the ball's bounce. My teammates thought I was crazy, but this wasn't madness. This was the mathematics of mastery. Let me tell you about the season after we lost to the Celtics in the 2008 finals. I was destroyed, humiliated, but instead of dwelling on the loss, I channeled that pain into the most detailed focus of my career. I called Hakeem Olajuwon and asked to train with him that summer. not to learn his general approach, but to understand the exact footwork patterns that made his dream shake unstoppable. For 8 hours a day, we worked on foot placement. Not shots, not scoring, just footwork. The precise angle of the heel on the pivot, the exact timing of weight transfer, the subtle shoulder fake that precedes the move. Most players would have been bored within 20 minutes. I was fascinated for weeks. This obsession with detail extended beyond basketball. I studied how predators move in the wild, their economy of motion, their patience, their precision. I analyzed how conductors use their hands to control the dynamics of an orchestra. I researched how surgeons maintain focus during long, complex procedures. Detail became my lens for understanding excellence in any domain. But here's what most people miss about this approach. It wasn't about perfectionism. It was about curiosity, about asking questions others weren't asking. While they wondered, how can I score more points? I was asking, what's happening in the millisecond before my elbow locks during my jump shot? This leads me to the fourth element of my focus strategy, the decomposition of complexity. Any complex skill, whether it's a basketball move, a business strategy, or a creative endeavor, can be broken down into its constituent parts. Most people try to master the whole before they've mastered the pieces. That's backward. I developed what I called isolation training. Take a single element, say the follow through on my jump shot. Remove everything else. Just practice that isolated motion for 3 hours. Then another element the next day, and another. When you finally reassemble these perfectly calibrated pieces, the complete motion has a different quality altogether. But this approach demands something few are willing to give: patience with delayed gratification. Society has conditioned us to expect immediate results, instant improvements. True mastery operates on a different timeline. Sometimes you work on elements that won't bear fruit for years. During the 2009-2010 season, I spent the entire summer refining a single aspect of my footwork, a specific pivot sequence that would create separation from defenders. For months, there was no visible improvement in my game. My shooting percentages didn't change. My scoring didn't increase. But I kept working, kept refining, kept believing in the process. It wasn't until the playoffs, in a crucial moment against the Phoenix Suns, that this detail suddenly integrated with everything else. One perfect pivot, one precise weight shift, and suddenly I had space where there should have been none. The shot fell, the game changed. Months of invisible work became visible in a single moment. This is where most people fail in their pursuit of excellence. They aren't willing to invest in improvements that don't yield immediate returns. They practice what already works instead of what still needs work. They optimize for today rather than tomorrow. The fifth component of my focus strategy was perhaps the most powerful: deliberate discomfort. I systematically sought out weaknesses in my game, in my body, in my mind, not to avoid them, but to dwell in them, to make them my home until they became strengths. When I noticed I was weaker going to my left, I spent an entire summer doing nothing but left-handed drills. When I realized my defensive footwork needed improvement, I hired a ballet instructor to refine my movement patterns, not for a week or a month, but for years. Most people structure their practice to experience success. I structured mine to expose failure. Every session, every drill was designed to push me to the breaking point, to the edge of my current abilities. Because that edge, that uncomfortable, frustrating, humbling edge, is where growth happens. The question isn't whether you have the talent to achieve your goals. The question is whether you have the attention to detail, the patience with process, and the comfort with discomfort that excellence demands. Are you willing to love the details that others consider tedious? Are you prepared to work on elements that show no immediate reward? Can you find joy in the discomfort of growth? Because these aren't just strategies for focus, they're requirements for mastery. The hardest truth I ever learned wasn't about success. It was about adversity. Most people run from it, they hide from it, they do everything they can to avoid it. And in doing so, they rob themselves of their greatest teacher. I tore my Achilles tendon on the 12th of April, 2013. When it happened, I felt the pop, knew immediately what it meant. Months of rehabilitation, questions about whether I'd ever play again, the potential end of everything I'd worked for. The team doctor confirmed what I already knew, but wanted me to leave the game immediately. Instead, I asked for one moment. I limped to the free throw line, made both shots, and then walked off the court on my own. People called it courage. It wasn't. It was something deeper, a relationship with adversity that I'd cultivated over decades. You see, most people have it backward. They think focus is about shutting out distractions to achieve their goals. But the deepest focus isn't about shutting out. It's about letting in, specifically letting in the very challenges that most would avoid. After my injury, I had a choice. I could view it as a setback, as unfair as the universe conspiring against me. Or I could view it as the ultimate opportunity, a chance to rebuild myself from the foundation up, to question every assumption about my game, my training, my approach. I chose the latter. During those months of rehabilitation, I developed what I call adversity alchemy, the ability to transform obstacles into advantages, limitations into opportunities, pain into power. When I couldn't run, I perfected my shooting mechanics from a seated position. When I couldn't jump, I refined my footwork to create space without elevation. When I couldn't practice physically, I deepened my mental game, studying film with a new level of detail and understanding. This wasn't positive thinking or empty motivation. This was strategic adaptation, finding advantages where others would see only disadvantages, creating opportunities where others would see only obstacles. The sixth element of my focus strategy emerged from this period: constraint-based creativity. True creativity isn't born from unlimited options. It's born from working within strict limitations. When everything is possible, nothing is interesting. When almost nothing is possible, you discover solutions you never would have seen otherwise. I remember working with a coach who wanted to improve my defensive positioning. Rather than giving me more flexibility, he constrained me. I had to defend elite players with one hand tied behind my back. These artificial limitations forced me to develop anticipation and positioning that I never would have discovered otherwise. Later in my career, as my body began showing signs of age, I didn't fight against these new limitations. I embraced them. I redesigned my game around them. My footwork became more economical, my shot selection more precise, my defensive positioning more strategic. The seventh component of my focus approach was what I call selective amnesia. Most people don't realize that focus isn't just about what you pay attention to. It's equally about what you choose to forget. After a bad game, bad call, or bad break, most players struggle to let it go. It lingers in their mind, affecting their next play, their next game, sometimes their entire season. I trained myself to have selective amnesia, the ability to completely erase certain memories while retaining others. That missed game-winning shot, forgotten before I left the arena. That referee's bad call, erased from my mind the moment it happened. Not suppressed or denied, truly forgotten. Because those memories served no purpose in my pursuit of excellence. But the lessons learned from those same experiences, those I kept, analyzing them, extracting their value, then integrating that knowledge while discarding the emotional residue that would only weigh me down. This wasn't a natural ability. It was a discipline I cultivated through specific mental practices. After any negative experience, I would immediately ask myself, what can I learn from this? Once I had the answer, I would visualize the emotional content of the experience dissolving, leaving only the valuable lesson behind. Most people do the opposite. They hold on to the emotion, the frustration, the disappointment, the anger, while failing to extract the lesson. They carry useless weight while leaving behind the only thing worth keeping. The eighth strategy I developed is what I call future memory. Most visualization techniques focus on imagining future success. That's useful, but limited. I took it further, creating detailed memories of events that hadn't happened yet. Before crucial games, I didn't just visualize making the winning shot. I created complete sensory memories: the feel of the ball in my hands, the sound of the crowd, the smell of the court, the taste of victory. I lived these moments so completely in my mind that when they actually occurred, they felt like deja vu, like I was remembering rather than experiencing them for the first time. This technique created a strange but powerful phenomenon. In critical moments, when pressure would cause most players to tighten up, I felt a sense of calm familiarity. I'd been here before, not just in similar situations, but in this exact moment through the power of fully realized mental rehearsal. What most people don't understand about focus is that it's not just about concentration, it's about relationship. Your relationship with time, with adversity, with limitation, with memory, with your future self. When these relationships are right, focus becomes not something you do, but something you are. So ask yourself, how do you relate to the very things most people avoid? Do you run from adversity, or do you mine it for its hidden advantages? Do you fight against limitations, or do you use them as creative catalysts? Do you carry the weight of past failures, or do you practice selective amnesia? Your answers reveal not just your focus strategy, but your relationship with excellence itself. 4 seconds left on the clock. 20,000 people holding their breath. The weight of an entire city on my shoulders. We've come full circle now. Back to that moment where our story began. Now, you understand that what you witnessed in those 4 seconds wasn't just a basketball play. It was the culmination of a lifetime of deliberate focus, the result of creating silence and chaos, of obsessing over details others ignored, of transforming adversity into advantage, of forgetting what needed to be forgotten and remembering what hadn't yet happened. People often ask me what went through my mind in moments like these. The truth might surprise you. Nothing went through my mind. Not hope or fear, not success or failure. Not the thousands watching or the millions more on television. In those moments of purest focus, there was no mind separate from action. There was only presence, complete undivided attention to the moment exactly as it was. This is the ultimate secret of focus, the ninth and final element of my strategy, what the Zen masters call no mind. Not the absence of thought, but the transcendence of it. When the distinction between the doer and the deed dissolves, when you become so completely absorbed in what you're doing that your sense of separate self temporarily vanishes. I experienced this state not just in crucial game moments, but in practice sessions where no one was watching, in film study when everyone else had gone home, in weight training when my muscles screamed for relief. These weren't just activities I did. They were portals to this state of complete presence, this perfect unity of intention and action. Most people spend their entire lives without experiencing this state even once. Not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they lack the foundational elements we've discussed. The silence, the detail orientation, the relationship with adversity, the selective amnesia, the future memory. These aren't just techniques, they're prerequisites for that ultimate state of focus. Now I need to tell you something important. Everything I've shared with you, these 9 elements of focus, they aren't just strategies for basketball or even for sports. They're strategies for life itself. For anything that matters deeply to you, I applied these same principles when I wrote screenplays, when I built businesses, when I raised my daughters. The domain changed, but the approach remained constant. Create silence, obsess over detail, break complexity into components, embrace discomfort, transform adversity, use constraints creatively, practice selective amnesia, develop future memory, cultivate no mind. This isn't just how you win games, it's how you win at life itself. But there's a price. There's always a price. These approaches demand sacrifice. They require you to live differently than others, to make choices that most won't understand, to value what most overlook, to find joy in what others consider tedious. I miss parties, I miss vacations, I miss sleep, I miss the normal experiences that most take for granted. Was it worth it? That's the wrong question. The real question is, what are you willing to sacrifice for what matters most to you? Because focus isn't just about attention, it's about values, about deciding what truly matters and then aligning your life accordingly. Focus is ruthless, It demands that most things, even good things, must be sacrificed for the few things that are vital. Remember what my father told me? Focus isn't about seeing one thing clearly. It's about not seeing anything else. Now you understand the full meaning of those words. True focus requires selective blindness, the courage to not see, to not do, to not be distracted by the infinite possibilities that could pull you away from your chosen path. The Mamba mentality isn't just about intensity or work ethic, though it includes those things. At its core, it's about clarity, about knowing exactly what matters to you and then systematically eliminating everything that doesn't serve that purpose. Its focus distilled to its essence. As our time together comes to an end, I want to leave you with a final truth, perhaps the most important one. The ultimate purpose of focus is an achievement. It isn't winning championships or breaking records or building legacies. Those are just side effects. The true purpose of focus is self-discovery. When you commit to anything with this level of attention, with this quality of presence, you discover who you really are. Not who you think you are or who others expect you to be, but your authentic self with all its capabilities and limitations, all its strengths and vulnerabilities. This is what the journey of focus revealed to me. Beyond the accolades and achievements, it showed me who I was. It stripped away the layers of pretense and expectation until only essence remained. And that discovery, that journey of self-knowledge through absolute commitment is available to anyone willing to pay the price. So I ask you one final time, what will be your focus? What matters so deeply to you that you're willing to create silence around it, to obsess over its details, to transform its adversities into advantages, to forget its failures while remembering its future? Whatever you choose, give it everything, not just your time or your energy or attention, but your complete presence. Because the secret I've shared with you today isn't really about how to focus, it's about how to live. 4 seconds left on the clock. The ball in your hands. The moment of truth isn't coming. It's already here.